What up, what up, what up? It's your boy Baz. Man, we going to be kicking it real live and funky today, man. We're going to be talking about the community, but most importantly, we're going to be talking about the culture. And we're going to talk about a holiday, man, that recently just passed, but it's going to come around every year. And it's part of my culture in particular and some of my listeners' culture. We talking about Juneteenth. And if you are African American, you come from that bloodline, you might not understand the full importance of it or the origination, or the origins. Let me talk proper. You feel me? We on a global scale now, man. So let me talk proper. The origins. I ain't gonna say talk proper. I'm just talking the way that y'all can understand though. But the origins of Juneteenth. But first, let's get into the actual facts. So what is Juneteenth? What is this shit that everybody be talking about on social media and celebrating? So Juneteenth is a holiday that commemorates, which basically means it celebrates or acknowledge, you feel me, the ending of slavery in the United States of America. It is also called the Emancipation Day or Juneteenth Independence Day. The name Juneteenth referring to the day of the actual, you feel me? It refers to the actual, the actual date where all this really went down. So, I want to kind of go back into like the actual history of things. You feel me? And go back into, you feel me, how and exactly, where did all this it happened. You feel me? So. Let's go back in time history. We know that the civil rights, but the Civil War, even before civil rights. Let's go back to the Civil War. You feel me? When everybody know that the Union and the Confederates, they all went, you feel me, fighting over slavery and basically fighting to bring America back together, which was once split over, over that argument or whatever. Long story short, as we all know, the Union won and President Lincoln, you feel me, ended slavery, but word didn't get back to Texas. Word didn't get back to Texas until June 19th, 1865, where basically soldiers arrived in the Union and basically began to tell Texas, you feel me, they told Texas, basically, they let Texas be known that they ended slavery, and that slavery was over with. And this was June 19th, you feel me, 1865, by the general named Robert S. Granger. You feel me? He's the one that issued the proclamation and notifying that Negroes were free in Texas. And basically, a year later, you feel me? They basically been started celebrating it. But it wasn't acknowledged like on like a national, not a national scale, but it just wasn't acknowledged yet. You feel me? Like as a holiday. So now it's like you feel me, like they began celebrating, you feel me, on 1866. It was marked as the first anniversary of the actual day. The African Americans began to, you feel me, celebrate the day that they learned about, you feel me, being emancipated from slavery in America. Long story short, you feel me? But then, as we all know, in that first state, in the actual state of Texas, that's how it also began to become what we would call like a celebrated holiday. And that was just due to the fact that their actual governor, James V. Alfred, he was one of the first people. He basically made that. He acknowledged it as an actual holiday that can be celebrated throughout Texas. And the funny thing that's about that is, once they did that, it became a holiday that's highly celebrated throughout Texas. And then once they began to do that, you feel me, became a big thing. We all know in America the Great Migration, and that was a lot of black people that moved from these southern states. They moved out west, and they also moved to northern states, and they also brought that culture with them. That Juneteenth culture. Some of those cities was Minneapolis, one in particular, where I'm gonna be all the way honest, I never knew nothing about Juneteenth until I actually, came and I was, just submerged in just Minneapolis culture. And then, the first time I heard of the holiday Juneteenth, I'm like, damn, what, Juneteenth, I ain't never really knew about that. I ain't know that was really celebrated like that. And then I didn't really know why it wasn't. But come to find out, it wasn't actually, it's not actually a nationally recognized holiday. At the time, it wasn't. When I first learned out about it, it wasn't a nationally recognized holiday. But as of today, I believe that 47 states have recognized it now as an actual holiday. And you feel me? Like that's pretty good. And one of those states, you feel me, that had one of the biggest turnouts. Besides that, actually, like the originating state was like DC and Milwaukee. Milwaukee did numbers on Juneteenth before. In DC, they had some of the largest numbers that brought people out to actually come celebrate it. So that's how it began to travel. Now, once the holiday began to travel, like due to what we were saying, it's not a nationally recognized holiday, so not everybody was up on game. As we start to get older, these generations and stuff like that, we wasn't really hip to the actual origins or the meaning behind Juneteenth. But then once you start, like the civil rights movement and things of that nature, it started to revive the actual culture of the Juneteenth, and people started to acknowledge Juneteenth. Like we were saying, in certain areas they were already hip, but it started to become like a focus to make sure that they preserve and also build the reason, like the influence of the actual event. And when I say the influence, it's like, when you think about Black History Month, what type of influence do Black History Month have on, this country? You feel me? During that 1 month, every school, businesses, all type of shit, they be trying to hop on to that whole, let's celebrate the Black culture movement. So it's like also building that same influence for Juneteenth. Like, let's celebrate the Black culture movement just how we would celebrate 4th of July, which follows like 3 weeks later is 4th of July, which the whole national independence, which we were so used to celebrating. You feel me? When you think about it, like, we were so used to celebrating America independence, but let's be real, if you come from that Black culture, we wasn't never, like we wasn't included on that independence, which is, we ain't trying. Man, fuck that. I ain't gonna say we ain't trying to. Nigga, we just gonna keep it real. I'm gonna just keep it all the way 100. We gonna talk that real shit right now. Like, that's just really what it was. We were still enslaved for probably, like, for damn near a whole another 100 years. While America was a free country, we were still, still enslaved. So then that's why now Black people across America that are starting to become more aware and more and tapped into the actual culture, you feel me? That's the holiday that they standing on, because it's part of our, just part of American culture, and that's what America gotta, other cultures within America gotta also you feel me? Y'all got to. I ain't gonna lie to you. If y'all want to see this as a prospering country, you gotta understand those that are around you. You feel me? Get to understand the cultures of those that are around you. There's a reason why Black people feel so strongly about Juneteenth, because in all reality, when it comes down to our history and our culture, we wasn't never really free when we celebrate when the country was free. We were still held captive within this same country that got its own freedom. You feel me? Like, and we were still held captive. So that's why Juneteenth is a real important thing, especially when you start to think about and acknowledge, you feel me, the contributions of African Americans to America, the United States of America. Think about the inventions, and you feel me, just a lot of the honorable things and leaderships and inventions, just innovative things that we have done for this country. We built this country. We literally built this country off of our blood, sweat, and tears. And that's why that holiday has so much importance and education behind it. So one of my last questions I just kind of want to hop into. So we I just really spun out. We really just started talking about basically the holiday, the celebrating of the actual Juneteenth start to become revived, especially with today and age with social media and you start to really see how everybody celebrates Juneteenth differently, man, and it's starting to become a real topic of conversation, especially now where you see people standing up for the culture, and the protesting and standing against the police violence, and basically this Black Lives Matter movement is reaching like a international scale now. It's like an actual brand now, and they painting it in the streets of DC, they painting it on the streets of cities, like on their main streets they painting Black Lives Matter. So now that this is starting to become a thing where people now are starting to see the importance of the actual black culture and the black people within their own country, Juneteenth is also Juneteenth is growing, and it's growing at a faster rate because, like I said, African Americans are starting to see the same value as Juneteenth as every other American sees the same value of 4th of July, because in our culture we wasn't free during the 4th of July. You feel me? What was it, 1776? We wasn't free. We didn't get free until damn near the end of the fucking 1800s. So while everybody was out there, popping fireworks, drinking, and celebrating being a new country, we was at work. You feel me? Getting beat, getting raped. You feel me? Being oppressed. But we ain't gonna go all the way there. We already know what happened. We know exactly what happened. But then that's what celebrating Juneteenth does. It sheds light that, like, hey, you feel me? Like, hey, we like, and that's why I feel like and my last little thoughts was about how do we move forward with Juneteenth. And I feel like the best way to move forward just for the future generations is by making it a national holiday. They probably already have, but from the best of my knowledge, the research that I've seen, and please somebody come on here correct me. I want somebody to correct me because I want it to be a national holiday. Somebody please come correct me if I'm wrong, but Juneteenth isn't a national holiday yet. It's celebrated in 47 states, and I feel like that right there, like, you feel me, that still kind of rubs individuals the wrong way, because it's like, why not? Martin Luther King Day, certain individuals, certain things are celebrated, and it just like, you feel me, we put slavery and things like that within the history books, but there's no actual holiday. I mean, like, they gave Black History Month, okay? They gave Black History Month and things of that nature, but it's also, we want to celebrate our freedom. The country celebrate its freedom. So as a nation, we should celebrate the day that we let go of being slave masters. You feel me? That's why I feel like the future about all this should really be, because that's what it'll really represent by you making a national holiday. Like, this is when America turned over a whole new leaf. Now, the fact that only certain states are adopting this and certain states are opting out of adopting it, it still kind of show what we still working through. And shit, I mean, we see every day on media what we still working through, and that's just that. Like, I feel like that's what Juneteenth also symbolizes. What are we working through? And if we, and that's what we need to put on the national scale. And with the power of social media and things of that nature, that's how this shit is really growing too, because somebody on the West Coast is seeing, you feel me, how they do it down in Atlanta. You feel me, down in Atlanta, they see how Minneapolis is doing it. Minneapolis is seeing how they do it over there in Chicago. If all these big cities is putting on for Juneteenth, man, fuck the fucking government trying to make it a national holiday. That shit is within us. You feel me? But each one gotta teach one. We gotta keep passing on that knowledge, and we gotta do some research. You feel me? Hey, celebrate them big facts. You feel me? Them big facts. Call it what it is. Emancipation. You feel me? Of African Americans from slavery. You feel me? Like, let them be known this was the day that we was free. Cause I ain't gonna lie, for a long time I grew up celebrating July. I mean, like, July 4th. You feel me? Woohoo! The United States of America became the United States of America. You feel me? I am from this country. I do stay in this country. But, like, man, a nigga still wasn't free. I'm going to just call it, I'm going to say it how it is. I understand that this is a public, like we said, international platform, but that's really how it was. So that is the true importance. If I got any listeners, any viewers that's out there, you feel me, Caucasian, Asian, Hispanic, no matter who you are, what you from, you feel me? This is the history of Juneteenth. This is why it's important, and that's why everybody, you feel me, the acknowledgement of this day, of this actual celebration, you feel me, is important, you feel me, to America, to the black culture, to your children, our children, because I feel like that's where growth starts. You acknowledge, you celebrate, we move on. You feel me? We learn, but we learn together. Each one teach one. As I said, like, hey, I'm Baz. I ain't gonna talk your head off. I actually want to see and talk about, you feel me, I want to talk to some organizers, you feel me, some individuals that, you feel me, somebody give me your experience, man. What was it like discovering Juneteenth if you never discovered it? Or what was it like always being a part of Juneteenth? You feel me? What was it like being a part of a celebration? You feel me? If you were a vendor at a Juneteenth celebration, if you put on for a Juneteenth celebration, what was that like? You feel me? I want to really get in depth with y'all. And also too, man, show some free support, man. It's nothing to it just to do it. It's nothing to just to like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to show even more support because you like what we standing on and you like what we stand for, you know, we always got a link to our merchandise store where you go shop for the merchandise, or you can always do like a paid subscription, or, you know, just donate to the podcast, man. We really out here, man. We really in these streets, and we really trying to be the voice of the culture. So we need y'all, you feel me, each one teach one, you feel me, we are a family, and that's why we call it ends the family, because it takes a family to build this shit, you feel me. No one man army is gonna get us to where we need to go, and family represents structure, you know, you feel me, family represents a lot, we ain't gonna go into all that, but, you know, understand the structure, and it's just a lot that come with family. So that's what we standing on, and that's what we trying to do. We the voice of the culture, and it's your boy Baz. This is podcast. We out, baby. Each one teach one, man. That's the message of the day, man. That's the message of the podcast, man. Each one teach one.